Hello everybody, this is a Paladin tanking tutorial on how to tank in Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn. Well, as you can see, this is a Paladin right here, one of the two main tanking classes in Final Fantasy XIV. And it's a very useful and much needed class. What is a tank? A tank is a person who holds all creature threat, making sure the other people in the party survive. In other words, you are taking the blows. You are there. If you weren't there, they will be dying. So, not a lot of pressure, just you're there for one reason only. Take the hits. Alright, so how you're going to take the hits is by generating a massive amount of threat as quickly as possible. One of the ways you can do that as a Paladin tank is once you eventually reach in the higher levels, you will have nice little abilities like Shield Oath. This will reduce your damage by 20% while lowering the damage dealt to you by 20%, so it's a nice trade-off. It also increases your threat production as well. However, it cannot be used with Sword Oath, which just increases your auto attacks by 50. Not very useful for tanking, but it is useful for soloing, so we'll ignore it. With Shield Oath on, your threat is pretty much doubled. So that's pretty useful to have once you get up to level 50. We'll start off with next the range pulls. Range pulls are very useful for tanks. They help pull the mobs into a position that will be easily accessible to the DPS and keep them safe from harm from any AoE attacks that might happen around the boss or any other creatures. In other words, frontal cones or straightforward area effects. However, 180-degree circular effects or any field effects will still happen and cannot be avoided, so they have to be wary of that. Let's start off with Provoke. It's a 25-yard range instant threat generation attack. It doesn't deal any damage, but it does increase your threat to the maximum threat of the highest threat person in the party. So if you lose threat, by all means use it as quickly as possible to try to get the threat back onto you. It's good for pulling from long range. As you can see, this turtle over here will be a nice example. He's out of range of my shield lob, which is only a 15-yard range. However, I can use Provoke to grab him and bring him over to me. This will start off with our next generations of attacks. Once he is to me, I can then proceed to use Flash. Flash will instant generate threat. It's very useful for multiple mobs. As you can see, I have 2 of them on me right now. This will generate decent threat, but not massive amounts that you would need to keep using it. It's only recommended to use it for the number of creatures attacking me. Since there are 2 creatures attacking me, I should only used it 2 times. However, I used it 3. What it also does is blinds the targets for 12 seconds. The duration is reduced each time it is used, so by the 3rd time, they will fully resist. However, the threat will still be generated. Once they are on me, you can then start your normal rotations, which will first be started with Fast Blade. It generates no extra threat, it's just a normal attack, but it is required to start your chain, which does activate Savage Blade. It's a normal low-hitting damage attack without the chain. However, in the chain, its damage is increased by 100%, and the threat generation is a decent amount. It's first threat generation ability you get as a tank. However, later on, you will get Rage of Halon, which is needed because it generates the most threat you could possibly can in the game as a tank. And the rotations is as follows. You would want to start off with Fast Blade, which will activate Savage Blade, which will you then hit and kill the targets. But we'll go on to the Striking Dummy. Halon, it hit the target dummy, and that will give me the maximum threat possible. And you will keep doing this until the target is dead, killed by the DPS. Strength reduction on the target, as you see right here, is a stat debuff given by the Rage of Halon. It's very effective. So when you have multiple creatures, you can then place it on 2 of them. It lasts for 20 seconds, so you can switch back and forth between the 2. Another useful thing is these 2 abilities right here. These have their own separate cooldowns, which you can use intermixedly with your combination attacks, and they will not be interrupted. Very useful for tanking. Another thing is fight or flight. I like using this on the start of a pull with a boss or massive groups of mobs. This will increase your threat generation as well by basing off the amount of damage that is increased by the attacks. Very useful if you want to use shield lob multiple times. It keeps the creature on you for a longer duration. Next we'll go to Rampart. This is the first damage reduction ability you get. It reduces the damage taken by 20% for 10 seconds, and later on 20 seconds. It's very nice and handy. I like using it as much as often when I'm in a boss fight. However, you can use it if you need the basis. Another one is Sentinel. It's gained later on at level 38, and it requires you to either be a paladin or a gladiator. It reduces the damage taken by 40% for only 10 seconds though, so I like using it when I take massive amounts of damage, and it keeps me in the fight just a little bit longer and makes sure a healer gets a heal on me in time. The next ability is Convalescence. I don't even think I pronounced that right, but who cares. It increases the HP restored by any spells and actions for you by 30% for 20 seconds. So, that cure that's going to hit you, it'll just be 30% stronger, which is nice. And you can use these in combinations. I do not believe Rampart or Sentinel stack, but I have not tried it, since I don't like using them at the same time. Next one you'll get is Awareness. Nullifies any chances suffering a critical damage hit for 25 seconds. It's great if you think eventually you're going to get a critical hit and die. You can pop it and save your life. Possibly. The next you will get is Bulwark. It's very nice because it increases your block rating by 60% for 15 seconds. So if you really want to get that shield swipe out to make a pacification duration on the target for 6 seconds, it is useful. Some bosses are vulnerable to this, and it will prevent them from using their abilities, which is nice. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask other tanks in the game. This is just an opinionated tutorial, and probably the best one that I have found so far that works for me. As I said, it works for me. Thank you, and have